What I will say is this. The president, and we've said this already, the president made his decision because he knew what needed to do, needed to be done. He said that in his letter. He said that in the Oval Office address. He talked about passing the baton. He talked about unifying the party, and he believed the action that he took would unify the party, the Democratic Party, and we saw that, to your point. So he's not surprised. That's what he wanted. That's what he expected. And he also knew from the moment when he picked the Vice President Harris, right, to be his running mate back in 2020, he said very recently it was the best decision that he's made. And it was the best decision that he made because he knew that she would be ready to lead on day one, and has been a critical partner with him in the last 3.5 years. So he's not surprised. He's not surprised that she was ready to go. Yeah, Danny.
Thanks, Green. You mentioned the importance of diplomacy. Have there been any direct contacts with Tehran itself to say, as President Biden would say, don't, or to tell them?
So we send messages to Iran when it's in our interest. And not certainly going to comment from here on the messages or our channels. That's not what I'm going to do from here. What I will say is that we've been clear that we will defend Israel, but we do not want this conflict to escalate or spread. We've been very consistent about that from here. We do not want it to spread further into the region. We've convened the same messages to our counterparts in the region, as I've just stated, and asked them to encourage Iran to refrain from escalating tensions. And so these de-escalation conversations are going to continue. That's what we want to see. We're going to continue to have conversations on how to get the ceasefire deal done, to get hostages home to their families, to get that humanitarian aid, continuing to get that humanitarian aid into Gaza. And that's what we want to see. We want to see the war in Gaza end, and obviously we want to see a de-escalation in tensions as well in the region.
Just one other thing closer to home. Can we expect any kind of press conference from the Vice President at any time soon?
Oh, that's for her team to speak to. I can't speak to that from here. Go ahead.
Thanks, Corinne. Just wanted to see, so on the ceasefire, what is President Biden's current timeline? It's now, almost middle of August. Does he think he can get this done by the end of his term, or what is the timeline he is tracking?
It's critical. It's a priority to get this done, and we want to get it done as soon as possible. That's what we've been working on. His team has been working on this 24/7. It is critical. It is important to get the ceasefire done, to bring hostages home, to get that humanitarian aid in to Gaza, continuing to increase that humanitarian aid. He wants to see the ceasefire deal done.
And does he think it will be done before the election?
I don't have a timeline for you. This is not about politics here. This is not about the election. This is about the right thing to do. And that's what we want to see get done.
Just on the economy, has President Biden, has he met with any bank CEOs or have any plans to, meet with, I don't know, maybe?
Don't have any meetings to read out to you at this time. Go ahead, Annie.
Also, thank you. On the economy, does the president have a view, or the White House have a view about what caused the sell-off on Monday? Like what the sort of reason was for it?
Look, I can tell you that he's been briefed by his economic team, he and the vice president. They're aware. They're going to continue to stay updated. Don't have anything beyond that. What I can say is the broader economic economy remains resilient. We believe, that's what we believe, the U.S. economy remains resilient, and we're going to continue to do the work on behalf of working Americans and also the middle class. That is going to be our focus.
And then there are some economists who believe that there's been a shift to where inflation was a major concern, and this sort of moment triggered a shift to the jobs numbers and unemployment being more significant. Can you speak to that at all, whether the White House views there being like a ground shift going on?
So, look, what we're seeing is a steady and stable growth we've called for. That's what we're seeing. Talking about the jobs numbers from last week, I believe. And look, this is a president that took on an economy that was in a downfall, right? Because of the pandemic. We saw businesses closing, schools closing, and he had to come in and do do what you've seen him do this past 3.5 years, turn the economy around, restart the economy. And we have seen the economy grew strong in 2.8% last quarter, nearly 16 million jobs, the lowest average unemployment, as I just mentioned, that we've seen, inflation down 2.5%. That's because of the work that this president has done. So we're seeing a steady and stable growth, as we have been talking about for some time, and we're seeing that. That's what we believe the jobs numbers showed us just last week. It is very different than what Republicans in Congress want to do. They want to cut taxes for corporations and billionaires. That's not what we want to do, right? We want to give a break to working families and middle-class families. They want to cut Social Security, Medicare. That's not what we want to do. You've seen this president who wants to protect Social Security and Medicare. So that's our focus. That's what we're going to continue to do. But we believe that we are indeed in a steady and stable growth, as we've been talking about, and the economic team is going to continue to monitor the situations that have developed over the last 24 hours or so. Okay.
When it comes to the situation in the Middle East, what signs is the administration seeing that Iran is preparing to attack Israel?
So look, we're going to continue to monitor the situation. I hope you saw the statement from the Department of Defense this past Friday on what they're doing with their force posture adjustments, preparing, making sure that we are giving Israel that increased support that they need. In the meantime, we're going to continue to have these conversations. We're going to continue to try to do everything that we can to de-escalate the tensions, hence the readouts that we put out today and also yesterday. That's going to be our focus. Anything else, I don't have anything beyond that, but we're continuing to monitor everything closely. Good, Emma.
Thanks, Corinne. A couple questions for you. Now that Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, is he getting the intelligence briefings that it's traditional for presidential nominees to get?
So that's something for ODNI to speak to. I would refer you to them.
And then here at the White House, have you guys started the transition process, and who's going to be in charge of that? And
Why are you trying to kick us out already? We've got 5 months.
It's a lot more work than people realize to pack up an administration.
I don't have anything to share about that at this time. Okay. Go ahead. Good. No, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Corinne. On foreign policy, starting with Venezuela, can the White House clarify where it stands on Edmundo Gonzalez? Does the administration see him as a legitimate president of Venezuela? And if so, what steps are you taking or preparing to take to, legitimize him?
So a couple of things. And I believe the State Department put out a statement just last week. So I'll say this. The United States has been in close coordination with regional and international partners following Venezuela's presidential election on June 28th and rapid declaration of the National Electoral Council that Nicolas Maduro won without evidence. This is a critical moment for democracy in our shared hemisphere. The opposition and civil society have published more than 80% of the tally sheets received from polling stations throughout Venezuela, which indicate that Armando Gonzalez Urrutia received the most votes by an insurmountable margin. Independent observers, pre-election and exit polls, and quick counts corroborated these results. The will of the people must be respected. At least 12 million Venezuelans courageously went to the polls despite significant challenges and exercised their democratic right to vote. Now is the time for the Venezuelan parties to begin a respectful, peaceful dialogue and discussions in accordance with their laws and the votes of the people to chart the path forward for a more democratic, prosperous, and also secure Venezuela. So I'd reiterate the United States' commitment to supporting this process of reestablished democratic norms in Venezuela and stand ready to consider ways to bolster these efforts jointly with our international partners.
On Iran, and then I do have a question about Bangladesh, because of course it's very timely, but let me start with Iran. Pakistan said at a recent OIC meeting that they would willingly supply Iran with mid-range missiles if the war continues. Has the administration spoken to Islamabad about this, expressed concerns, and if so, what's the message?
I think we've been very clear with our message, right? I've said, somebody asked me, how do we communicate with Iran? Obviously, we have our partners out there that does the communications. We have ways to do that. Obviously, I'm not going to lay that out. Other ways to do that, I'm not going to lay that out from here. But I think we've been very clear. we've been very clear in our support for Israel and making sure they have what they need to defend themselves. And I don't think that you can look at this administration and not know what the message has been and what we have been very clear about. And so when we send messages to Iran, it is within our interest, and I'll just leave it there.
Okay, then quickly on Bangladesh, concerning events in Dhaka, has the White House reached out to parties in Dhaka, and what would you like to see happen next?
So we're monitoring the situation in Bangladesh very closely. We have long called for respective democratic rights in Bangladesh, and we urge that the interim government formation be democratic and inclusive. We commend the army for the restraint they have showed. We encourage all parties to refrain from further violence and restore peace as quickly as possible. We express our deep concern and sadness about the reports of casualties and injuries over the weekend and past weeks, and we share our deepest condolences with those who lost loved ones and those who are suffering. It will be vital for the new government to carefully and credibly investigate all attacks and provide accountability and justice.